Guys, what is happening? Welcome back to the channel and thank you again so much for being here. No intro today, just gonna get stuck straight in, and today's video is brake upgrades on your Mark IV Escort. So the upgraded brakes that I'm using on mine are from a Ford Fiesta ST150. If anyone is watching this in Australia, because there are a couple of guys that have reached out in Australia with Mark IV Escorts, that is the Ford Fiesta XR4 that is sold here in Australia. In the UK, they called the ST150 the XR4 in Australia. So it's exactly the same car. It is the, I believe, the Mark VI Ford Fiesta before they started turbocharging them in the ST. But yeah, here in Australia, they call it the XR4. Gets pretty confusing because in the UK, you guys had the Sierra, but I digress onto absolutely boring shit that I shouldn't be talking about. So, when you're upgrading the brakes on your car, guys, you need to understand what you're actually doing, because these cars, in fact, let's turn the camera around. Guys, these cars are only 900 kilos. So if you're putting monstrously large 3 and 4 pot brakes up front and big Cosworth rear disc conversions and all that kind of stuff, and you're not adding like an extra 500 kilos to the car, you're really over braking the vehicle, and it doesn't need that. All right, this is a 900 kilo car. There are no brakes there. I will put some on because that'd be fucking weird, wouldn't it, if I didn't? All right, it's a 900 kilo car. You don't need the biggest, craziest brake system ever. Sure, if you are running big power, you're gonna want bigger brakes, but you got to kind of think about it in relation to the weight of the car. The brakes are stopping the car, obviously, from the inertia of the acceleration and the sheer speed of the acceleration, but also they're stopping the weight of the car. So what I'm going for, as I've already said, is the Ford Fiesta ST150 setup. All right, now these are the 260 millimeter Series 2 RS Turbo discs. These are the RS Turbo pads, RS Turbo caliper, and you can see it looks like it has spent some time with the Titanic. And XR4/Fiesta ST150 brake pad and caliper. So the caliper itself is a bit bigger, but these holes here to mount the caliper are in exactly the same spot, but the depth of the caliper is a little bit different. So we do need some spacers, and I've got those here and I'm going to show you about that. We do need some spacers to space this out from the hub so it sits and mates with the disc. Now the XR4 disc or the ST150 disc is 278 millimeters. All right, and I did measure that. It is nice and center in there, and if we do have a little look, it is just under 10, 9 millimeters bigger there, which equates to a 9 millimeter bigger radius, which is an 18 millimeter bigger diameter. So the 260 millimeter disc and then 278 millimeter disc. Now guys, the reason that you need to space them out is because the Escort disc from hub to disc is actually a little bit deeper. Put that down. Is actually a little bit deeper. Let me take that out the wrapper so we can have a look. And it's the middle of winter here in Australia, so I've got my jumper on, got my little heater. Now you can see that from the hub to the actual face of the disc, this is shallower, which means the disc is going to sit further out, which obviously means we need to space the caliper out. And that's what these spacers are for. So what I'm going to do is put you on time lapse. We're going to pretend that this is a RS turbo caliper, because taking it off is exactly the same as putting it back on again, because I don't have any spacers on this one. Remove the disc. We're going to fit the Fiesta disc, and I'm going to show you how to do this. All right, guys, so super straightforward to remove the brake caliper. Now, I am removing an ST150 caliper because I did just sit them on there, but the process is the same. However, the ST150 caliper uses a 13mm bolt, and the standard Escort one, the hex bolt size on the end is 17. Now, you do want to use the Fiesta fitting bolt when you're fitting the Fiesta caliper, simply because the Fiesta caliper bolt is longer. Don't forget to remove your brake line. I'm going to remove mine from the inner arch because I don't have my hard lines connected, but you guys probably want to remove it from the caliper. And yes, you are actually going to have to bleed your brakes when this is over, because you're going to get brake fluid all over the place, most likely. So make sure you clean it up, everything with a rag. Now, once you've got the two bolts off that hold the actual caliper on, place it down somewhere nice and safe where you're not going to. So now the standard Escort disc actually has a little screw that holds it into the hub. The aftermarket discs that I got don't have that, and I may well drill a hole into it at a later date. All this does is it just secures the disc onto the hub, and it stops it from moving around. So it's really easy to then, in turn put your wheel nuts back in when you're putting the wheel back on. A little bit of copper grease on the hub just before you apply the new disc. Probably should be using a glove here, but I ran out, so that's what the green rag is for between my legs. I'll just clean my hand off with that in a second when I'm done. All right, so obviously the disc goes on before the caliper. If you do put the caliper on before the disc, well, sorry to say, you're going to have to take that off again to put the disc on. Once you've got the disc on, I like to just use some wheel nuts just to hold it all in place. That way it's not going to be flopping around and falling off whilst I'm trying to mount the caliper. Now, if you're trying to be a famous YouTuber like me, make sure you move your camera so people can see what you're doing. I even went all out for you guys, so I hope you appreciate it. Give me a like and a subscribe. Move the camera, set everything up. I even put a light in the inside of my arch so you guys could see what I'm doing. Now, I used a 13mm spacer between the hub and the caliper. I found that that was the perfect size for the difference in the depth of the actual disc. Some guys are saying use 10, some guys are saying use 15, but I just measured everything out, and I just came back, my calculations were 13mm, so I used a 13mm spacer. Once that's on, we're going to tighten it all up, and remember that you do need to use the Fiesta caliper fitting gear. Here, you don't need to drill a bigger hole in the hub or anything like that. They fit, but you need to use the Fiesta ones because the Fiesta bolts are longer and you're spacing the caliper away from the hub a little bit. The Escort ones, they simply will not reach, okay? And remember, the Fiesta ones are the longer ones with the 13mm bolt. So now everything's on. I'm just going to mount the wheel, and because the disc doesn't actually have the little hole in the front to put the grub screw in and hold it onto the hub, it was a little bit of a nightmare fitting it on, so I'm definitely going to be drilling that hole in the disc. But here I'm just mounting the wheel just to double check that everything fits. I did do the measurements and I knew it was going to fit, but oh, here we go. There's my bald spot. Fantastic. Guys, I'm 42 and I'm getting way too tall for my hair here. Yeah, so just fitting the wheel, making sure everything fits. You cannot do this upgrade with the standard RS Turbo wheels. You do need to do this if you're using an aftermarket wheel. The ones I've got here, guys, are just Enkei lightweight racing wheels. SC46, I believe, is the wheel model number. I'm not too sure of the offset though. I'm gonna have to look that up, maybe tell you guys in another video, but yeah. Anyways, guys, that's it from me. Thanks so much for watching. I really appreciate it, and I think you'll agree that that looks a heap better, and although it's only a little bit bigger than the standard one, it's gonna help me stop better.